What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC 291. We have Dustin Poirier going against Justin Gaethje. We have a very stacked card. So last week we had 15 fights. This week we have 12 fights, but looking forward to all 12 fights. There's not one fight on this card where I'm like, yeah, this fight kind of sucks. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to every single fight on this card. And honestly, one of the better pay-per-views of the year. So this should be a very, very fun night of fights. I'm here as always with Uncle Weezy. Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to UFC 291?
Definitely. This is, like you said, it's a great card from top to bottom. I mean, come on, for a main event, Poirier Gaethje, it's about as good as it gets. It's, there are very few fights that are guaranteed to be awesome, but outside of like somebody getting injured in this fight, I mean, it's pretty much 100% that it's going to be an absolute banger from beginning to end. They're so well matched. They're such all action fighters. They really got that dog in them. Both of them do. They both scrap. So it's just a phenomenal main event. And then it's great everywhere else on the card too. So, and you know what, Brady, it's really nice to only have to break down 12 fights, man. 15 fights, is a long week. And then you put in there that we're in the midst of a 17-week straight stretch of UFC action. It's really nice to kind of just be able to hone in and spend a little bit more time taping each fight, going a little bit further into detail, and really solidifying your reads this week. And that opportunity is open to us because we only have 12 fights to break down. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully everybody makes it to the scale, and this is the final iteration of what we're going to see on Saturday.
Yeah, 15 fights last week. I mean, come on. I thought at least a couple would fall off, especially with, a lot of people coming down a weight class, a couple layoffs. But no, all 15 fights happened, and it was a very long day. But enjoyed the fights. We'll do a quick recap of last week. Uncle Weezy, I'll let you kick it off. I know you didn't have a ton of action last night, but how'd you enjoy the card and how'd you do?
The fights were fun. I really did enjoy the card, but it was a bad week for me. I was down 0.93 units. All my time props crashed and burned. I had fight goes to decision for Diakese versus Alvarez, and we had that headbutt in the second round. I'm not saying that would have definitely cashed, but that headbutt obviously changed the trajectory of the fight, and it looked like it might get there. It looked a lot better than the plus 185 that I got it at. So lost a unit there. I lost a unit on the under 1.5 rounds in Craig versus Muniz. I mean, the fight finished in the second round, but it was late in the second round. And Muniz, if you didn't get the memo, Brady, he's a striker now.
He is, yeah.
He's a striker now, and a very, very below average one. So, we've got to adjust our expectations of Muniz properly. He has fallen in love with the box, and it is not working out for him. It has been a very bad career move. Just like every other grappler that falls in love with their hands, it winds up being a complete crater in your career. We're seeing it happen in real time to Andre Muniz. And then the worst bet, Brady, the worst bet. Now, I do get to hold up my CLV trophy on this horrible bet, which was the under 2.5 rounds in the Ziam versus Herbert fight, the Hug Fest. That fight had a 0% chance of finishing under 2.5 rounds. But I did get the line at plus 165. It closed around plus 120. So I will take my CLV trophy and take the 1 unit loss that came along with that trophy. So, yeah, down 3 units on my time props. But then I had a Muradov money line parlay with the Ziam money line. That cash, I had 1.5 units on that, cash for a little more than 2 units. So, at the end of the day, up 2 units on parlays, but down 3 units on props, down 0.93 units, snapped a 3-week winning streak for myself. So got to get right back on the horse this week, find another win here, make it 4 out of the last 5 and start another winning streak. But I know that you, who has been having a fantastic year up to this point, really had a fantastic night last night.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy, man. I really attacked last night's card. I think I was like 16.25 units deep. And what was cool about last night is I had like 7 bets where I laid the juice, and then like 7 underdog bets, And I hit all 7 bets where I laid the juice. The first, my only money line bet was on Lerone Murphy at -130 for 1.5 units. It was a spot where I thought they were like well matched. I just thought there was a lot of things going for Lerone Murphy. Obviously in London, I thought that was big. The fact that Kopylov had to travel like 20 to 25 hours all the way from Australia. I like the hometown advantage. I like the fact that this was going to be the first fight in the UFC where Lerone Murphy didn't really have to worry about somebody trying to take him down. And Kopylov did try to take him down, but Murphy's takedown defense held up, so that was awesome. And honestly, that -130 looked like pretty good value. And then I found out after I made the bet, Weezy, that it was Lerone Murphy's birthday, which is one of the best bases in MMA, fighting on your birthday. So I knew for a fact, like, it's his birthday. We're in London. I mean, he's not losing this fight. So that was good. I had 2 parlays. The first parlay was Aspinall, parlayed with Murdov, -150 for 1.5 units. Both guys, cover their price tags there. The next parlay was Aspinall Tabura under 2.5 rounds. No sweat there. And then the Paul Craig Muniz fight doesn't go. 1.5 units -150. And then this was one that I feel kind of greasy and dirty hitting, Weezy. It was the Diakasey Joe Alvarez, the fight not starting round 3, -150 for 1.5 units. The blatant headbutt that hurt Diakasey, and then the sub shortly after. I mean, that fight was cruising to the 3rd round and probably the distance. Was kind of shocked that they didn't replay it, but apparently they didn't have like replay in London, so kind of got away with one there. I had the under 2.5 rounds in the Roberts Parsons fight, 1.5 units -135. I thought for a second that I think it was Herzog wasn't going to stop the fight, but luckily he stopped it with like 2 seconds left in the 2nd round. And then I had the under 2.5 in the McCann-Stolyarenko fight, 1.5 units -130. That hit pretty easily. Shout out to Holia Stolyarenko. And by the way, I was looking right at it. Holia Stolyarenko, 1st round sub, +850. And I didn't bet. I'm like, that is literally your path to victory. But I know a lot of people that got in on Stolyarenko. So those were all the bets where I laid chalk. Some plus money bets. I had 3 pushes, Weezy. I had 3 finish onlys that didn't hit, but they also didn't lose. I had the Parkin finish only, the Ashmos finish only, and then the Grant finish only. Shout out to Ashmos, like breaking his wrist in the 1st round and then surviving the next 2. I thought that was pretty cool. So didn't lose any of those. Those all pushed. I had the fight doesn't go in the Filio Perez fight at +100 for 1 unit. I knew that was hitting from the jump. Perez came out there, hurt Filio to the body multiple times. Filio ended up getting on top and then subbing him shortly after. I had a half unit shot on Johnny Parsons inside the distance +160. That was nice. That was probably the most excited I've been in a while. I talked a lot of crap about Danny Roberts. I talked about his durability, his chin. And I'm glad that Parsons was able to come true. I didn't think that Parsons is that great, but he does hit hard, and that was enough. So those were all the wins. The losses, I was with you on that, the under 1.5 in the Craig Muniz fight. A couple minutes in, I kind of figured it was going over. Muniz decided that, like you said, he's a striker, and a striking match was not going to finish that fight early. They did started grappling in the 2nd round, but just a little bit too late there. I had a half unit shot on Molly McCann inside the distance +135. Obviously not a great bet. She got subbed in 2 minutes. I had a half unit shot on Makhman Muradov winning inside the distance +135. And I think I got my value on that one. He hurt Barberena like 50 times in that matchup. Barberena just next level tough. And then had like small sprinkles on Muradov sub 2, sub 3 that did not come close, but he did get like 10 takedowns. So overall +5.97 units, and it was my 2nd best night of the year. And it was a decent card. There was a couple fights that kind of like sucked, but there were also some very, very good fights. And I'm glad to see Tom Aspinall came back. And this guy's so good, man. There were like question marks, how's he going to look after the layoff, the injury? And then he went out there and starched Marcin Tybura. How good is Tom Aspinall, man?
Yeah, I mean, and like he's built like a brick shithouse too. He's just like absolutely huge for the division. He's got really fast hands, and he's clearly got really good grappling chops. He's an opportunistic submission grappler as well. We need to see what he's going to look like in the 2nd or 3rd round still. We're still missing a little bit of information on him, but I mean, everything that we've seen from this guy has just been 100%. It's been fantastic. So really looking forward to seeing who's next for him, but there's some really good choices out there. We're going to have to see who wins Pavlovich's next fight, because that's going to kind of be an interesting one to see, who wins that one, and, where Jones and Miocic lands. It's an interesting division right now, and the new blood in it, like Pavlovich and Aspinall, is really exciting.
Yeah, Aspinall said he's going to go to Paris and watch Cyril Gane, Sergey Spivak, and then he wants the winner of those two, which I think we both know who's winning that one. It's the vampire.
Yeah, dude. I mean, yeah, and you don't fight vampires near Transylvania ever. Why would you even sign? I mean, like France isn't that far from Transylvania, you guys. And yeah, if you just got to pray that fight gets made in the daytime. That's the only chance that Cyril Gane has in that spot, in my opinion. I think Sergey's going to throw him around like a rag doll.
Yeah, I think Cyril Gane's probably going to show up fight night with like a garlic necklace and like a crucifix. And maybe if he comes with that, he might get it done. But yeah, so solid night of fights last night. I think this card is going to be so good, though. I think this could be one of the better pay-per-views of the year for sure. In UFC 291, stacked card. I do want to shout out the chat before we get started. We got our guy Mushroom, first one in the building. What is up, Mushroom? We got Rob in the chat as well. We got Ollie 1. Bananas and Grapes. We got Sean V as well. Kiwi, Dirty Reg. We got Dixon Cider. We have Cole Stein. We got Jeff in the building as well. We got Propaholic, Brandon Babcock. We have The Train, which I think might be Nate The Train. What is up, The Train? We got David Dennett in the chat. We got Joe in the chat. We got our guy Melon in the chat. Mark, Snerius, Rick the Ruler, Any Action in the chat as well. What is up, everybody? We got Biker Boy. We got Chris. We got MMA Jesus. PSSA. What is up? How you guys doing? Please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy go live every Sunday for some stat diggers, diving deep into these fights. And I say we get into it. Weezy, what do you say?
Let's go, man. This is such a fun card.
All right, let's get it, man. We're going to kick it off with a fun fight. Miranda Maverick coming in here on short notice, going against Priscilla Cachoeira. We got Miranda Maverick, 26 years old, 5'3", with a 65-inch reach. Priscilla Cachoeira, she is 34 years old, 5'7", with a 65-inch reach. We got Maverick, 8 years younger. Cachoeira with a 4-inch height advantage, same reach there. So Maverick, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. A decision loss to Macy Barber in a fight that she won. A decision loss to Erin Blanchfield. Submission win against Sabina Mazo. Decision win against Shanna Young, and then a decision loss to Jasmine Jasdovicius as a massive favorite. As far as Priscilla Cachoeira, this kind of shocks me. I mean, if you told me a couple of years ago that Priscilla Cachoeira was 4-1 in her last 5 fights, I would have said you're lying. But no, she's 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Amazing. She knocked out Shanna Dobson. She knocked out Gina Mazzani. She got subbed by Jillian Robertson. She beat Jeon Kim by decision. And then she knocked out Ariana Lipsky in like a minute. I'm a big fan of Priscilla Cachoeira, one of my favorite fighters in the UFC, WMA or not. She's one of my favorites in the UFC. She is very, very fun and exciting. You will never watch, ever, a boring Priscilla Cachoeira fight. In the past, she has been called names like Priscilla Catch a Beating, which she does a lot of times, but she's super tough. She will take that beating and she'll come right back and she'll knock you out. She's also been called Priscilla Catch a Cheating, which rings very true. I remember the fight with Jillian Robertson where I think she not only missed weight, but in that fight she missed weight. She grabbed the cage and then she eye gouged Jillian Robertson on 2 separate occasions. And I think it was Joe Rogan who's like, that's dirty. That's dirty. And I'm like, yeah. So that's where she kind of got the catch a cheating name. So odds are in this fight, she probably does, do one of the 3 things, miss weight, grab the cage, or eye gouge. I think that's very much on the table. But Weezy, we have a striker versus grappler matchup here, as clear as it gets. Cachoeira is going to want to keep this on the feet. And when it's on the feet, although she's not defensively sound, she doesn't need to be. She can eat as many shots as you can throw, and she'll eat them all. And then, that one that she lands, it's going to hurt you a lot more. So on the feet, I favor Cachoeira. And then on the mat, Maverick is going to have a significant advantage. I mean, there's a reason Maverick is just a massive favorite. Am I going to lay minus 350 on Miranda Maverick? Absolutely not. But if she's able to take this fight down to the mat, I think she can style on Cachoeira, who that's where she struggles, the ground game. I went back and watched the Valentina Shevchenko fight, more so for comedy. I think it was pretty entertaining. It was the fight where Mario Yamasaki almost let Cachoeira die. Valentina Shevchenko had her in a crucifix position, and she had to have landed 200 elbows in that second round. Cachoeira was getting, the fight should have been stopped minutes prior. So there was that situation where, Shevchenko finished her on the mat. We saw Gina Mazzani get a round and a half of control time. up until gassing out. We saw Jillian Robertson go out there and sub Cachoeira. I think if Maverick's able to go out there, take her down, get this fight down to the mat, take her back, she can submit her. But Maverick is coming here on short notice. And Weezy, we're in Utah, Salt Lake City, which is something I want to talk about a lot for a couple of these matchups on this card. Because I remember the last Utah card, it was the Usman-Edwards fight, and there were some like weird outcomes. Remember the Rockhold Costa fight where they like both gassed out in like 2 minutes? There was Sean Woodson fight where Sean Woodson gassed out and looked horrible. So I think there's some short notice guys. I think this elevation is something to really talk about for a lot of these matchups, and maybe this is one of them. But I'm gonna go with Maverick here. But she's like minus 350, which doesn't really seem like the best investment in the world. But such a fun fight here to kick off the card.
Yeah, I mean, what do you mean not the best investment? Minus 350 for a women's favorite? What could possibly go wrong, Brady? I mean, I don't see anything that could possibly go wrong. It's not like Cachoeira hits hard. It's not like she's like she's like the NFL's embodiment of John Madden's Oakland Raiders. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. So Cachoeira brings that absolute durability and that toughness, that willingness to eat 3 to give 1, not eat 1 to give 1, not eat 2 to give 1. No, 52% distance striking defense, chin up in the air, walking forward like Michael Myers with a machete. And she is kind of like Michael Myers. You just can't kill her. You could beat the living piss out of her, but she will keep coming. And that's why they call her the zombie girl. So, yeah. But you look at Miranda Maverick's distance striking numbers in the UFC. I mean, they're really good, Brady. Above average 40.7% accuracy. Above average 63.74% distance striking defense. She lands 6.37 per minute. She absorbs 4.69. That's a positive 1.68 distance striking differential. So, not only is Miranda going to be the better wrestler here and the better submission grappler and the better minute winner in the grappling exchanges, she's actually also throwing more volume than Cachoeira. She's more defensively sound than Cachoeira. She's a little bit more accurate than Priscilla, but it comes down to that power. Miranda Maverick wins minutes in this fight up until she loses the moment. So how about a finish-only prop on Priscilla Cachoeira? Might be a decent way to catch some value on her if Miranda Maverick does not submit her. And, to be honest, Miranda Maverick submitted 1 UFC opponent. She's got 4 wins. And it was Sabina. She couldn't submit Shanna Young. So as good as Miranda has been, and as high of a level of competition as she has fought, this feels like this, the value's on the Cachoeira side, because styles make fights. And if you're going to make Priscilla Cachoeira this big of an underdog, with the power, the durability, and the perseverance that she has, I think that's probably the side that you want to play here. But maybe get Cachoeira inside the distance, because I don't think that there's any way that she wins a decision here. She's not a minute winner, not against Miranda Maverick, who can probably win minutes in the grappling exchanges here. So, yeah, I mean, Cachoeira inside the distance, I think would be the way that I would play the plus money side here. But this is such a fun way to start off the card. Any Priscilla Cachoeira fight, I'm there. I'm going to be betting on it too. Violence is always something you can look at. That, and by the way, point deduction for our guy Lou Betcha. This is a clam bag situation that we have here, where at 20-1 for a point deduction, fence grabs, eye gouges. I could definitely see that. Eye pokes even from Cachoeira. She's going to cheat here. She's going to cheat.
Yep, she might even, like I said, miss weight or something. But there's going to be some cheating for sure. Some people in the chat are talking about the elevation for Maverick. She does train in elevation for what it's worth. She trains in Colorado, but so I don't think it's gonna be too big of an issue for her. Yeah, it's funny when I saw this matchup was announced, Maverick coming in on short notice. I'm like, oh, Maverick's gonna be minus 500. And funny enough, she opened up minus 500. Obviously, I'm not going to lay that, but I think she is a big favorite for a reason, and the reason is she just has a glaring path to victory. Cachoeira on the feet, she has a lot of power, but on the mat, her ground game's just non-existent. I think Maverick probably subs her here. So I'm going to take Maverick to sub Cachoeira at some point. But instead of laying the minus 350, I might look at like inside the distance prop, or I think the under solid as well. I remember we both smashed that under in the Karina Silva Cachoeira fight. I think at like minus 140. I had like a big bet on it as well, and then I forget who pulled out, but didn't get an opportunity to hit that because that would have hit. I mean, Karina Silva unders hit all the time, and with Cachoeira as well, we kind of had a missed opportunity there.
Dude, I was so furious when that fight got canceled. That was the biggest layup under since any Na Liang under that we've ever bet. I mean, we were already counting our money and spending it, Brady, and when they announced that fight was canceled. To talk about the perfect situation for an under bet, Karine Silva versus Priscilla Cachoeira. It would have been beautiful.
Exactly. And then the odds on the point production is typically plus 2,000, but I think they might bump it down to plus 1,800 for this one.
We'll have to see. It's a Cachoeira fight, man. I mean, if you know that she's going to cheat, you know she's going to be tough. You know that she's not going to quit, and you know that she's going to cheat.
Yeah. Easy pass. I disagree. I bet on Cachoeira fights all the time, and I cash in a lot because I bet violence in Cachoeira fights. So it should be a great fight to kick off the card. Let's move on to another fight that should be very violent. We have Matthew Semmelsberger going against Uros Medich. We got Semmelsberger, 30 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. Medich, 30 years old, 6'1" with a 71-inch reach. Semmelsberger, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Martin Sano Jr., a decision win against AJ Fletcher, a decision loss against Alex Morono, a decision win against Jake Matthews, and then a decision loss to Jeremiah Wells. As far as Uros Medich, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, with a knockout win against Mikey Gonzalez on the Contender Series, a knockout win against Alon Cruz, a submission loss to Jalen Turner, and then a knockout win against Omar Morales in the second round here. So I guess a big thing to mention is Uros Medich is coming in here on short notice. Which is something to really mention because I already kind of questioned the cardio of Medich. He's a guy that's never seen the third round. He's a guy that's been over 1.5 rounds only once in his career. Uros Medich is also coming back up to 170. This is going to be the first fight in the UFC at 170. He has fought at 170 prior to the UFC, but typically he was fighting at lightweight against Morales, Turner, Alon Cruz, and Mikey Gonzalez, I believe, was at lightweight. So Medich coming in here on short notice, up a weight class against Matthew Semmelsberger, who I think is really good. I had some high hopes for Matthew Semmelsberger when he first got into the UFC, but I didn't think he was going to be this good. Both guys have a ton of power, but Matthew Semmelsberger especially. I mean, he dropped Jeremiah Wells on several different occasions in that fight. In his last fight, which he did lose, but he was taken down 6 times, and he was controlled for 11 minutes of that fight. And a judge actually scored the fight for Matthew Semmelsberger, and you could potentially make a case for him because he did hurt Jeremiah Wells big time on multiple occasions. Luckily for Semmelsberger, he's not going to have to worry about any takedowns here from Uros Medich. On the feet, Medich is a very, very good striker, but I worry about him if this fight gets extended. I'm worried about him if Semmelsberger lands a big shot as well, and I'm worried about Medich if Semmelsberger goes to the wrestling here because we have not really seen Medich's ground game tested all that much. We saw Turner tested a little bit. Medich did not look that good off his back. And then you take a look at Uros Medich back in Alaska FC. Like everybody's taking this guy down. His takedown defense doesn't look that great. So I think it's a pretty good spot here for Semmelsberger. The Semmelsberger money line just been getting pounded all day. He was at like minus 140. Now he's minus 180. And I think it's because there's just a lot of things going against Medich. The elevation, the potential cardio, the ground game, the fact that he's coming up a weight class on short notice against somebody in Semmelsberger who can wrestle, who hits like a truck. I think it's a pretty bad matchup for Medich. I think if Medich wins this fight, he's going to have to finish Semmelsberger within the first couple minutes. And Semmelsberger is just next level tough. So I like Semmelsberger quite a bit here. And I think he probably finishes Medich at some point in this fight. I'm going to be looking at the fight won't start round 3. Medich in his entire career has never seen the third round. I don't see why that changes here with 2 very hard hitters. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight? It's crazy this fight is so down low on the card because it's a very, very fun one here.
Yeah, this was supposed to be Semmelsberger versus Johan Leoness, and now we've got Uros Medich stepping in to take Leoness's place after Leoness had to pull out. And I mean, dude, I've always enjoyed Uros Medich fights. I mean, he is an exciting fighter, a fun fighter. I'll never forget him on Dana White's Contender Series, knocking out Mikey Gonzalez, going up to the camera and saying that's why they call me the doctor, because this guy needs a nurse. And I mean, it was brilliant, and he was knocking out, low-level fighters in Alaska FC prior to coming to the UFC. So he had some things to prove, A lot of these guys coming in from Alaska, they tend to be frauds, but Earls came in and he knocked out Mikey Gonzalez. He made quick work of Elon Cruz, and then he loses to Jalen Turner, but then he goes and he knocks out Omar Morales, who's a solid UFC level fighter with good kickboxing, a tough guy. So Earls has kind of proved, now he belongs to be here. He's training. Oh, he was training at King's MMA. I don't know if he's still there, but he switched over to that camp when he got into the UFC. And we like his striking numbers. I mean, he's landing 5.68 at distance, only absorbing 4.7, positive one distance striking differential, really high accuracy, really good power. He's landed 3 knockdowns in 3 UFC fights, not including what we saw on the Contender Series. But Semmelsberger, dude, this guy's absolutely huge for the lightweight division. He's absolutely an explosive athlete, a former football player. And, he's got a wrestler's back. He's got serious power in his hands. And he's a really good scrapper, too. That there's no quitting the dude. He's never been finished in the UFC in 8 UFC appearances against some really good guys. Guy like Jeremiah Wells, who's a ridiculously talented finisher. Jake Matthews, Alex Morono, AJ Fletcher. He even knocked out the great Martin Sano. So, we know that we don't want to get in this dude's way. This guy's he's 7 for 10 on his takedowns. He's attempted 10 takedowns. His opponents have attempted 23, but he's still finding ways to win 43% of the control time positions in his fights. He's fought a much tougher level of competition, especially at the UFC level and outside the UFC, because Eros was in Alaska FC. So much better strength to schedule for Semmelsberger. Semmelsberger is the more experienced guy. He's the more experienced guy at the UFC level. He's the natural welterweight while Medich is moving up a weight class. He's the one not taking this fight on short notice. I really like Semmelsberger in this spot. Uros Medich is always going to be live for an early KO. And, Uros Medich has a 3.62 minute average fight time over 9 professional fights. And in his 3 UFC fights, 4.59 minute average fight time. So this guy, he fights like he's double parked. He's going to be live early here. But as the fight goes on, the more explosive athlete, the harder hitter in Semmelsberger, the natural middleweight, the guy with the conditioning advantage and the size advantage. And don't forget, Uros Medich has been away from the cage, Brady, for over a year now, coming off some serious surgery. There's just a lot of roadblocks in the way of Uros Medich. I think it'll be good for him to get this fight out of the way, get this loss out of the way against a very tough opponent. The UFC won't hold it against him, probably like they didn't hold the Jalen Turner loss against him. But I don't think this is the spot for Medich. I'd be really surprised if he had success against Semmelsberger, because I think that this kid Semmelsberger is very good and he's just going to get better.
Yeah, like you said, Medich has been dealing with a hand injury. He got surgery, and I was looking at his Instagram, and it is true. So he's been out for a while, coming up a weight class, short notice. And by the way, I'm so glad Lioness pulled out of the fight. He is so boring to watch. He used to be fun, but now he just does nothing. He's so worried about gassing out. This is a 20 times better fight, Medich versus Sem. Because at least with Medich, he's going to go out there and fight. Whereas with Lioness, he would go out there and just look at Semmelsberger for 3 rounds. So, yeah, I like this fight quite a bit. I did hop on Semmelsberger at minus 148, like a lot did, and now he's like minus 180. Very popular play, which is always scary, but there's a reason for it. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to like Semmelsberger here. And like I said, I'll be looking at maybe like a fight won't start round 3. The under 1.5 currently is at plus 125. I think that definitely has some potential to hit. I did see my guy Clinton here. What is up, Clint? He's saying, oh, hey, I can't stay because I'm doing my own study and listen to you guys after, but wanted to say I love it, Jew. What is up, Clint? Good to see you. And I can't wait for your show tomorrow as well. All right. And we did miss this, Weezy, which is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
He is a Jedi.
Yeah, that's important too. That's really important, you know. And I mean, fighting a Jedi always difficult. Fighting a Jedi on short notice, up a weight class, now you might be in some trouble.
Yeah. He is a Jedi, and he does hit like a semi. This guy hits hard. I mean, the way he knocked down Jeremiah Wells like 3 times, it was wild.
Yeah, that was such a good fight. And I mean, Wells is such a tough opponent. We know that Semi is here to stay and that he's going to be really giving us a lot of exciting fights for a long time in this welterweight division. I think the kid is really good.
Yeah, me as well. Looking forward to it. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We have Vinicius Salvador going against CJ Vergara. We got Vergara, 32 years old, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. Salvador, 26 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. We got Salvador, who is 6 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Vergara, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He got a knockout win on the Contender Series, made his debut against Ode Osborne, lost that fight by decision. He won a decision against Kletzen Rodriguez, lost by submission to Tatsuro Taira, and then knocked out Daniel De Silva's last fight out. As far as Vinicius Salvador, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Had that knockout win against Shannon Ross on the Contender Series, and then fought Victor Altamirano and lost that fight by decision. So I remember taping Vinicius Salvador for Contender Series and just being like so unimpressed with the guy. Like I remember Shannon Ross being like a massive favorite in the matchup against him, and I did pick Ross to win the fight, and honestly with some confidence. And then Salvador, shows up after a couple year layoff and just looks nothing like I saw before. And I'm starting to wonder, is Salvador, did he make a ton of improvements, or did he fight Shannon Ross and look very good? Because that matchup, that win is just aging just so poorly after Shannon Ross got knocked out by Jesus Aguilar with a 62-inch reach. Aguilar, that was his first knockout ever. So yes, it was a great performance and he looked much improved, but that matchup just doesn't really tell me anything. And then he makes his debut against a real opponent in Victor Altamirano, and it's not that he lost the fight, but I mean he just looked awful in that matchup. He was trying to take off Altamirano's head. He was very wild. He was messing around in there. Like I remember he lost the first round clearly, and at the end of the first round, he just put his hands up like he won the first round. I mean, it was annoying. Like he was messing around, walking away in the fight, in a fight that he was just losing like every minute of that fight. So just a very terrible performance in that matchup. But what was even worse than that performance, Weezy, was this guy's haircut. And I mentioned it to you earlier today. He showed up in his last fight with probably the worst haircut I've ever seen. And it looks, judging by his Instagram, that he's not showing up with that same haircut. So maybe that will help him out a little bit. But as I always say, bad haircut, bad performance, unless you're Johnny Parsons, then you can get away with it. But I'm curious to see the haircut he shows up with this time. CJ Vergara, just the dude's tough as nails. He's solid all around. He's not amazing anywhere, but he's fought some very good guys. He survived just an absolute storm against Daniel De Silva in a fight that probably could have been stopped. I mean, running away for like 2 minutes straight is probably not intelligently defending yourself, but Herzog let it play on, and De Silva started gassing out, and then he finished him in the second round. So Vergara's next level tough, next level durable, and I think that durability is going to carry him a long way in this matchup. I'm not sure what to think of Salvador. Is this guy legit, or is that Shannon Ross when, how much should I really look into that? Because it is Shannon Ross. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this matchup? It should be another decent one.
Yeah, this is a fun fight. I mean, I'm very, very low on Vinicius Salvador. I made 2 units on Altamirano beating him. I had I think like a 2.5 unit bet on Altamirano at something like -125 for that fight. So El Magnifico cashed for me against Vinicius Salvador. And frankly, I think Vergara is probably a better fighter than Altamirano at this point, just because, as well-rounded and tough as Altamirano is, CJ Vergara's pressure is just really difficult to deal with. Now, and then you look at a guy like Salvador, right? Yeah, look at that. The Ronaldinho haircut. Ronaldinho, fantastic footballer.
Yeah.
Vinicius Salvador, not as good of a fighter as Ronaldinho was a soccer player. Let's just face it, but that's just horrible. That haircut is terrible. And I think, for Ronaldinho, to be fair, Brady, he chose that haircut to kind of draw attention away from those horse teeth. So it was a decision that was kind of put on his doorstep. He had no other choice but to do that. Salvador didn't have to do that, So I just question the decision making of the haircut, of putting your own back up against the cage like you're Anderson Silva and pretending that you're winning fights that you're actually losing. Yeah. Throwing inefficient, wild, not straight down the pipe techniques that don't really land very much against high level fighters. All these things are bad choices to make. And against CJ, I think that even the way that Salvador prefers to fight, which is kind of like a wild man at distance, I mean, CJ's not going to give him distance. He's just going to be walking this dude down. So one crazy stat here, Brady, you look at CJ Vergara's UFC fights, 4 of them, almost 50 minutes in the cage. CJ has attempted 0 takedowns. CJ has had 24 takedowns attempted against him. But CJ actually wins 50% of the control time positions that he's in. So even when you take CJ down, he gets back up. And if CJ gets on top of you, he stays there for a very, very long time and wins a lot of minutes. So CJ Vergara is efficient in the grappling exchanges. He's efficient in the striking exchanges. Look at CJ Vergara's 51.5% distance striking accuracy, and then compare it to Vinicius Salvador, who couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. 32.77% distance striking accuracy for him. And then he's got 49% distance striking defense. Now, CJ at 55% isn't spectacular by any stretch of the imagination, but it's 6% better than 49%. CJ's fought the much better brand of competition. 3 out of the last 4 wins that Vinicius Salvador got prior to getting in the UFC, when this guy already had something like an 11-5 record, were against guys with 0-0 records. So, I mean, he wasn't even trying to fight real fighters. He was just trying to string together a few wins and hope he got the call, because he's not good enough to fight at this level. And if you want to look at that, look at his experience prior to beating those 0-0 bums. He's getting submitted in the second round by Jafel Filio on the regional scene. He's getting submitted in the second round by another bum on the regional scene. He loses a split decision to another guy that's definitely not UFC level, but is a solid regional scene fighter. And then not only that, Vinicius did do good work in the first round of the Shannon Ross fight. Shannon Ross was winning the second round of that fight, which is absolutely hilarious. If you lose 3-minute chunks of a professional fight to Shannon Ross, then you cannot be betting this guy. I think he's a complete phony. I think he's a fraud. I think he's a complete sham. It's a travesty. It's a sham. It's a mockery. I think CJ Vergara is going to mop the floor with this dude.
Yeah, I was telling you earlier. I actually wrote notes for this fight. Sometimes I do notes for fights. Sometimes I just take mental notes in my head. But I actually wrote notes for this fight. And I wrote down one word, and that word was indeed phony. It's a very phony haircut, very phony performance, and I'm just not sure he's the real deal. I actually had some high hopes. I thought, oh, this guy made so many improvements, but then you kind of look back and it's Shannon Ross, right? So. I like Salvador as well. I saw him at like -155, but the line's kind of gone. I think I'm going to pass as of now, but I think he gets it done. What's interesting, though, is they juice this fight heavily to the under, which is very interesting. So the under 2.5 is like -170. I kind of hate that, just due to the fact that Vergara is just next level durable.
Yeah, he's very durable, and it's not like he's a one-punch knockout guy either, though. But that. When he dropped or he really hurt Clayton Rodriguez to the body with a body kick, and then Clayton kind of shot in on a sloppy shot. CJ turned him over and stayed on top of him for like 3.5 minutes there. CJ can absolutely hurt you. And he's a Muay Thai guy. He's a Pete Spratt guy. He's been training with Pete Spratt for like 10 years. So, he's got some really good Muay Thai of his own. I just think that his striking techniques are just a lot more functional at this level rather than the wild man spinning shit, wild, wide hooks that Vinicius Salvador brings.
Yep, for sure. So I have nothing on this fight yet, but the pick for me is going to be Salvador. But I agree with Kiwi. Just a brutal haircut there.
Wait, you're picking Salvador?
No. Did I say that?
Oh, I think you just said that. Yeah. You said I'm picking Salvador. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I just went off on this dude. Now you're gonna
go. I was reading the chat and somebody said, no, I'm picking Vergara. My bad.
Yeah, I parlayed the Vergara money line with the semi money line. I like both those guys to win. I think I got like plus 135 on it. And that was with semi at minus 180 because I just missed the line on him. But I figured still, I really like semi. I really like CJ. So parlaying them both, getting plus money is a small parlay, 1 unit to win like 1.35. But that's what I'm doing here on this early part of the card.
Yeah, there we go. Shout out to Weezy for catching my mistake there. I would never pick somebody with a shit haircut like that. Besides Johnny Parsons.
But Parsons was fighting Danny Roberts last week. Yeah. I mean, I watched the tape. I'm so glad I just didn't like blindly fade Parsons because I watched the tape on Danny Roberts. I was like, oh my God, not only am I not betting him, I actually like Parsons, I think. I didn't have the balls to bet him. Yeah, shout out Johnny Parsons. Hey, that was a hell of a performance. Great knockout of a UFC veteran. Great way to make your debut there. He had a tough weight cut, but great win for him.
Absolutely. All right, Weezy, let's move on to this next fight. Actually looking forward to this one. So we got Jake Matthews going against Darius Flowers. We got Jake Matthews, 28 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. Darius Flowers, 28 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. Same age there. Matthews, 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Jake Matthews is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Had won a decision against Emil Meek. Diego Sanchez lost by submission to Sean Brady. Knocked out Andre Fiallo in the second round and then lost a decision to Matthew Semmelsberger. As far as Darius Flowers, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Had like an injury type win on the Contender Series against Gogaladze where he took down Gogaladze and I think like his shoulder popped out, something like that, but was able to get a contract nonetheless. So this is something huge to mention. So Darius Flowers is coming in here on short notice. It was supposed to be Jake Matthews versus Miguel Baeza, and we talked a little bit about the elevation. I don't like Darius Flowers' cardio in general, and the fact that he's coming in here on short notice in elevation just makes me kind of hate him in this matchup. With that said, though, Darius Flowers is super dangerous, and he kind of reminds me of like Derrick Lewis in a sense where he does a lot of nothing, a lot of just standing there. But once he like starts to go for it, he lands like a 20 to 30 punch combination, and he has a ton of power. And we have seen Jake Matthews hurt. We saw him get hurt a lot against Semmelsberger, and Darius Flowers is probably going to have some opportunities early on in this matchup, but I think it has to be early, especially with the short notice aspect of things. Darius Flowers, like I said, he does slow down as the fight goes on in general. We have seen him broken in general. He's been finished a ton, and all of his losses he's been finished. So I think it's kind of Flowers early here or Jake Matthews late. Jake Matthews opened up as a massive favorite recently. The line has came down a little bit. It's now Jake Matthews minus 300, so big favorite nonetheless. I feel like Flowers, I say just play him by first round knockout. I don't see him having much of a chance outside of this first round. So I think Flowers is a very exciting fighter. I'm glad that he's in the UFC. This guy's fun. This guy gets after it. He can wrestle a little bit. But in terms of the cardio, I don't think it's there. And like I said, I don't like the fact that he is coming in here on very short notice. I think this fight just got announced just a couple days ago. So I like Matthews to finish Flowers as this fight goes on. But Flowers is going to have probably some success early, and Matthews is going to have to weather a storm here. Really, really fun fight here, Weezy.
Yeah, I mean, Miranda Maverick is a late notice replacement. Uros Medich is a late notice replacement, and now we've got Darius Flowers, who's replacing Miguel Baeza, who was supposed to be fighting Matthews here. So a little bit different of a stylistic matchup. With Baeza, you got a real slick boxer, a real slick striker. With Flowers, you got somebody who's probably going to wrestle a little bit early, or just kind of try to empty the tank early and land a huge bomb. He's a wrestle boxer, Chicago fight team, Chicago guy. pretty experienced. But I mean, if you look at the anthropomorphic stuff here, Matthews 2 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage. These guys are pretty much the exact same age, but Matthews has got 6 more pro fights. He's got about twice as much pro cage time, and then 17 of his 24 professional fights are at the UFC level. So obviously, Matthews has been fighting the better brand of competition. But if you look at the guys that Darius Flowers has fought, he's fought a lot of recognizable names on the regional scene. So this he's been around a long time. He's still only 28 years old. So he's still kind of young. He could still be making improvements here. He's been really active too, Brady. 6.5-year career, but 18 professional fights. So even though Darius Flowers doesn't have the best looking record here at 12-5-1, he's a fighter, and he fights with a style that can be difficult for certain people to deal with, especially on short notice when you were planning for a much more technical, slick striker in Miguel Baeza rather than it's a completely different stylistic matchup for Jake. So we gotta keep that in mind, when thinking about laying massive juice on Jake. But I could see why people would want to do that. I mean, if you look at the numbers on Matthews, his distance striking numbers are really solid. His clinch and his ground striking numbers are really solid. His wrestling numbers are really solid. I mean, he gets 1.78 takedowns per 15 minutes, only allows 0.7. He wins about 62% or 5/8 of the control time positions that he's in. He lands 1.05 more strikes at distance per minute than his opponents do. He's got decent accuracy, but he's got 70% distance striking defense. So this guy's hard to land on. He's very defensively responsible. So Jake Matthews is going to be a guy who's going to be a good minute winner, and we see that. 5-2 in UFC decisions, 6-2 overall. And then he's also a good finisher. He's actually finished 6 of his 11 UFC wins, with 2 by knockout and 4 by submission. So not to mention, Jake's got a full training camp. Darius Flowers doesn't. Darius Flowers, in an 18-fight career, has a 6.85 minute average fight time. And Brady, he's been finished in all 5 of his pro losses. And he's finished 10 of his of his wins inside the distance of the 12. So only 3 of those 18 fights for Flowers have seen the scorecards. So he's definitely a guy that if he doesn't get the job done in the first 6-7 minutes, you gotta expect somebody like Jake Matthews is going to take over down the stretch here. See, I like Matthews, but Darius Flowers is going to be dangerous for the first few minutes of this fight. And if he was smart, he would play to that. What's the point of trying to win minutes against this guy and grind out a 15-minute decision in Salt Lake City at elevation when you're not even on a full training camp, and this guy's much more experienced than you, and he's fought the much better brand of competition. If you're Darius Flowers, go out there and try and starch this hoe in the first 90 to 120 seconds. Bring chaos, just bring something that Matthews can't plan for, and then hope for the best. Because, the further this fight goes on, you got to believe that Jake's going to take over. So, like Jake here. But, I think that this fight is going to be a really fun fight because they found another fun short notice replacement, just like Maverick, just like Medich. Here now we got Darius Flowers stepping in on short notice, and it's going to prove to be a very fun fight, whether or not you have money on it.
Oh, absolutely. EQ saying, why do I feel like Flowers will get a fluke win? If he gets a win, I don't know if it'll be a fluke. I think if he gets a win, it's probably because he knocked out Jake Matthews in the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the fight. Flowers has a ton of power, and I was kind of checking his Instagram, and apparently he's a future 2-division champion. Weezy, I don't know if you knew that.
Future 2-division champion. And I love the nickname, dude. Beast Mode, one of my favorite running backs ever in the NFL. Marshawn Lynch, Beast Mode. Now we got Darius Beast Mode Flowers, straight out of Chicago, looking to knock some fools out. I'm really looking forward to this kid making his debut here. And I think Equinamius was saying, why do I feel as if he got a fluke win? It was because of the shoulder injury to Gogoladze. Who knows how that would have turned out, but it happens sometimes. Sometimes dudes get hurt, but he did slam him, didn't he?
Yeah, he slammed him.
Yeah, so maybe it wasn't a complete fluke. I don't know. We're going to find out, though. We'll see what Darius Flowers has for Jake Matthews on Saturday, but it's going to be a tough road to hoe, taking that kind of fight on short notice against an experienced, well-rounded opponent like Matthews who can find your weakness if you have one.
Yeah. I mean, I like Flowers a lot. Just a short notice, I don't like that. And apparently he's a comedian, Weezy. He posted this. Dude, she used to be bad. She fell off since high school. The dude. And then he posted that picture, and then he said, "It's me. I'm dude."
With the balding. Yeah. I mean, it's hey, if you know that's good thing for a fighter to be self-aware of your weaknesses in particular, so that you can hide them in the cage. Let's see if he uses that sharp sense of humor, that self-deprecating sense of humor, Brady, to hide his actual fighting weaknesses and take that best path to victory on Saturday as a big plus money underdog.
Yep. Having a sense of humor is one of the best bases in MMA. I think we all know that.
Yeah, very good. It definitely works for a lot of people, for sure. Look at Conor McGregor.
Yep, exactly. Flowers a lock. No. But I mean, he could win, but I think it's got to be early. I mean, the short notice thing really scares me. Plus, elevation scares me as well.
Yeah, I mean, the elevation is always a very important thing to take into consideration on these fights, especially when you got a short notice replacement.
Yes, sir. And I think elevation might play a factor in this next fight. We got Claudio Ribeiro going against Roman Kopylov. We got Kopylov, 32 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Ribeiro, 30 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. We got Ribeiro 2 years younger, 1-inch height advantage, 2-inch reach advantage. Kopylov is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, made his debut back in the day against Karl Roberson, lost by third-round submission, lost a decision to Albert Duraev, knocked out Alessio Di Chirico, and knocked out Punahele Soriano. As far as Ribeiro, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Abdulrazak Alassane, lost that fight by second-round knockout. He did get a first-round knockout on the Contender Series against Valenzuela, and that came in like 30 seconds. And then he knocked out Joseph Holmes his last fight out. So Roman Kopylov is a guy that I think is finally starting to put it together. I mean, this is a guy that looked pretty bad against Karl Roberson, but that fight ago was so long ago at this point. He looked a little bit better against Albert Duraev until he got taken down. He hurt Duraev early. Duraev took him down in the second round. Should have finished him. The ref didn't stop the fight, but he didn't look great in that matchup. But then he shows up against Alessio Di Chirico and just looks really, really good. And then he fights Punahele Soriano, and he looks amazing, best he ever had. Kopylov is looking better than ever. I think he's really starting to put it together. He's training in Dagestan these days, so he's working on that wrestling, that grappling. And he's going against Claudio Ribeiro, who is just he's a hard hitter. I'm not really sure what to think about him. He lost to Alassane, beat Holmes. That doesn't really tell me much, but this guy does hit very, very hard. He throws these like big looping shots. Apparently he can, wrestle a little bit. He showed that off in the Holmes fight, but I think this is primarily going to be a striker versus grappler matchup where 2 guys can very well knock each other out. Very, very fun fight here, Weezy. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get why Kopylov's such a big favorite here. I mean, Ribeiro is obviously going to be very dangerous, especially early. He's very explosive. He hits very hard, but so does Kopylov. He's a tricky southpaw striker, really good kickboxer. Kind of reminds me of Armen Petrosyan. Like the film on Kopylov pre-UFC looked a lot like the film on Petrosyan, where Kopylov's getting taken down and then he keeps getting back up. And every minute that you spend on the feet against this guy, he's doing really good work and he's starting to land big shots. And with Kopylov, it's not like a one-punch knockout power, but it seems like everything that lands from him hurts and it piles up. And you don't seem to recover, from anything that lands from this guy because as the fight goes on, this guy's finishing dudes, Brady. He's got 9 of his 10 wins are by, finish, and they're all knockouts. he's really heavy-handed. And then we got a guy in Ribeiro, 100% knockout rate in 11 wins. So, 21 combined wins, 20 of them inside the distance. Ribeiro been finished in 2 of 3 losses. Kopylov finished in 1 of 2 losses, and the one that he wasn't finished in could have probably been stopped a couple of times when Duraev was pounding his head through the canvas from top position. So definitely like violence here. Kopylov has landed 2 knockdowns. Ribeiro has landed 1, so 3 combined knockdowns in 6 fights. And we've seen Ribeiro get knocked down as well. So, yeah, I mean, an under 1.5 wouldn't be the worst look here, but honestly, it takes a little bit longer for Kopylov to get going. You know, he's not a first-round knockout type of guy, but he does hit very hard. And if Ribeiro doesn't, you know, have the best conditioning going into this one, I could see it ending under 1.5. But I might be looking at Kopylov inside the distance potentially. Here, I think that could be a decent number. Kopylov by KO. We'll see where that's at. But I do like Roman here. I think he's the better technical striker. And I just don't think that Claudio is going to be able to get wrestling going against this guy.
Yeah, I like Kopylov as well. Don't love the price tag, to be honest. I mean, minus 225, because Ribeiro is super dangerous, and I think these guys are going to throw down. But as this fight goes on, I agree with a lot of the chat. I think as this fight goes on, it's going to heavily favor Roman Kopylov. I think he hasn't shown the best cardio, but I think he has better cardio than Ribeiro. And like I said, we are in elevation. And like I said, that volume is going to add up as this fight goes on. So yeah, I kind of see the same way as you, Weezy. Kopylov, probably a second or third round knockout. But Ribeiro is going to be very dangerous in his first 5 minutes, I think. But as this fight goes on, I do expect him to take over. The way he broke down Punahele Soriano was a sight to see. He looked very good in that matchup. I think he's making rapid improvements. And I think Kopylov does eventually get him out of there. And I'm with you on the violence. Don't know if I like the under 1.5 though. Plus 135. I think I'd rather get like a 2.5. Even the fight doesn't go. We'll see where that's at. Just because, like you said, I think it's going to take Kopylov a little bit longer to eventually find the finish. But I think he eventually does break him down and find that finish. Just don't know when it comes.
You know what might be a good way to play that, Brady? And I don't usually advocate this kind of a bet, but my prop template loves the over 1.5. And I think what you might be able to do is bet the over 1.5 and bet the fight doesn't go to decision, and both might cash. You know, because Kopylov's fights, there's 4 of them in the UFC. They've all went over 1.5 rounds. But 3 of those 4 fights did end in the last 7.5 minutes. And for Ribeiro, it's 1 of 2 that has went over 1.5, but neither of them have went to decision. So he had 1 fight out of 2 finish in the last 7.5 minutes, and it's 3. So 4 of these guys' 6 combined fights have finished in the last 7.5 minutes. That might be a cheeky way to play this one, because it does take a little while for Kopylov to get things going, but he's also very durable, so he might be able to weather the early storm from Ribeiro, tire him out, and then get that finish in the second or third round.
Yep, that's kind of how I'm seeing it. I might sprinkle those 2-3 props for Kopylov as well, but they're probably going to be all over. But if not, I will sprinkle them.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's a good look, and I'm high on Kopylov. I think he's really good, but Ribeiro's a fun fighter, so just another great fight, another really good matchmaking done here, and I'm looking forward to watching this one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very good fight, very good card. Claudio's corner keeps saying, he's the guy that says, hey, which I love. Hey,
I love that. I love that. They got the woman and the man. The woman with that bleach blonde hair, and she's just like in your face, pumping you up. And then that other dude just hey. I love it. It's awesome, dude. This is a great card from top to bottom, like you said, man. And now the next one, the knockout king, the Black Beast, going up against the surging Marcos Rogério de Lima. Another fun fight. Somebody's gonna get served, Brady.
I think somebody is going to get served as well. I wanted to find that picture of that lady in his corner. Remember there was a picture going around where she was just like slapping him and stuff. Like it was pretty terrifying stuff.
Yeah, she's got that blonde hair. From Brazil. That's the camp. The camp is Brazilian Black Tie, BBT. That's where Claudio Ribeiro is out, and that's where I think they're a husband and wife team that train him or something like that. But yeah, so fun.
Yeah, speaking of terrifying though, Cole brings up a really good point, and I can't unsee it.
It's true.
It looks just like Vinicius Salvador. Like I think they took Salvador's picture and posted it there.
Yeah, Salvador's not a handsome man either. No. You know, he's not a technical striker. He's a wild man, and he's not a handsome man. And then with the haircut, it makes it even worse.
Yeah, so I cannot unsee that. All right, let's move on though, Weezy, to the next fight. And like you said, I think somebody's probably going to get served in this one. We have Marcos Rogério de Lima going against Derrick Lewis. We got Derrick Lewis, 38 years old, 6'3", with a 79-inch reach. Marcos Rogério de Lima, 38 years old, 6'1", with a 75-inch reach. Same age there. Derrick Lewis, 2-inch height advantage and then a 4-inch reach advantage. Derrick Lewis is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Knockout loss to Cyril Gane. Knockout win against Chris Daukaus. Knockout loss to Tai Tuivasa and Sergey Pavlovich. And then a submission loss to a Vampire. As far as Marcos Rogério de Lima, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against Maurice Green. A knockout win against Ben Rothwell. A decision loss to Blagoy Ivanov. A submission win against Andrei Arlovsky. And then a decision win against Waldo Cortez Acosta. So this is going to be a very, very fun fight for as long as it lasts. Derrick Lewis kind of has changed up his style a little bit. I don't know if you have noticed, like he's a guy that had, typically in the past, he'd be like very patient. He wouldn't do a lot early, but in his last couple fights, like he's a guy that typically does go over the 1.5 rounds, but 5 of his last 6 fights have finished under 1.5 rounds. It seems like he's being more aggressive, which you would think that would be a good thing, right? But his opponents are kind of taking advantage of that and kind of hurting Derrick Lewis. And I really have concerns about the durability of Derrick Lewis at this point. I have concerns about the ability to battle any adversity whatsoever. Like when this guy gets hurt, like it's over. He's been finished 9 times in his career at this point, 7 by knockout. And he's taken on a guy, Marcos Rogério de Lima, who quite frankly is just dangerous everywhere. De Lima has heavy leg kicks. I think if Lewis takes a couple, though, I think the fight might be over. I think, De Lima might be able to finish him with leg kicks. I think De Lima could potentially land a big shot. And I think De Lima could potentially take him down and sub him. So I think there's a lot of ways for De Lima to win this fight, but I think it has to be in the first round. De Lima's cardio is very, very bad. We've seen in a lot of fights in the past where he has like very good first rounds. And once that second round hits, he's like done. And we are in elevation, which I kind of hate for De Lima. So I think he probably does go out there and starch Lewis, whether it's those leg kicks, whether I'm landing a big shot. But if he does not finish Lewis in the first 5 minutes, I do have some serious concerns here. Obviously, both guys can knock each other out. So DraftKings did release like 4 or 5 lines for this card, and they released it like a month and a half, 2 months ago. And Bobby Green they opened up Bobby Green at like plus 130 against Tony Ferguson. They opened up Marcos Rogério de Lima at like plus 115, plus 120 against Lewis. And since then, money's just been pouring in on Marcos Rogério de Lima. And I get it. Like de Lima has a lot of ways to win this fight, knocking him out, to the head, to the legs, and then taking him down and stuff. Like, I think there's a lot of ways for de Lima to win this fight, but Derrick Lewis cannot be counted out in any fight whatsoever against anybody. At the end of the day, this is a heavyweight fight, and at the end of the day, he does hit, he's the hardest hitter in the division. So I'm going to pick de Lima to win this fight by first round knockout, but if this fight does get extended, I think that does heavily favor a guy like Derrick Lewis, but I don't think this fight gets extended. Give me de Lima to knock out Derrick Lewis and give Derrick Lewis his 10th finish loss in the UFC. Weezy, this fight is going to be so much fun. 2 big guys throwing down and throwing very, very hard.
Yeah, and like the average fight time amongst these 2 guys is, right around 7 minutes at the UFC level, 7.5 minutes. Marcos Rogério de Lima has a 6-minute average fight time in the UFC, and for Lewis, it's 8.8 minutes. And Lewis has got 17 UFC wins, and 13 of them are by knockout. So he's just so dangerous. He's somebody that can literally knock anybody out. It doesn't matter. And it's oftentimes when you don't expect him to win, that's when he gets that knockout. And he's very patient, and I don't like seeing the more aggressive Lewis because he doesn't have a great gas tank. He can't really wrestle, but if he kind of waits to counter punch or just waits until you come into range and finds that big shot, he finishes fights like that. But de Lima's, very dangerous at range in his own right. But we do see this guy winning minutes in control time positions. And in the top right of your screen, you're going to see the control time stats, right? All the way in that right column. And you see Derrick Lewis controlling his opponents 11% of the time, allowing 31% control time. And then you look over on the other side, and Marcos has only attempted 21 takedowns, but he's gotten 10 of them. He's got 44% control time for and 17% control time against. So Derrick Lewis winning 27% of the control time positions that he's in. Marcos Rogério de Lima winning 71.5% of the control time positions that he's in. So they're both very dangerous on the feet. But it's Rogério de Lima who's the more well-rounded fighter, who has more ways to win this fight. Look at the strength of schedule numbers, though, and the wins are better for Lewis. The overall is better for Lewis. And then you look at those, he's 1-4 in his last 5, but he's losing to Cyril Gane, to Tai Tuivasa, Sergey Pavlovich, Sergey Spivak. These are top 10, heavyweights. Rogério de Lima is beating Waldo Cortez do Acosta, the ghost of Andrei Arlovsky, the ghost of Ben Rothwell, Maurice Green, who smokes with cigarettes, and then he actually lost to Blagoy Ivanov, although I think he probably did win that fight, but that's a bad loss. So I mean, I would just I would be careful about laying juice on Marcos Rogério de Lima here. It's a heavyweight fight. These are high variance fights. And like I say, man, it's when you think Lewis has no chance that he lands that big shot. And then you think to yourself, how didn't I know that wasn't going to happen? Every damn time with Derrick Lewis. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you, dude. I think Rogério de Lima is probably the better pick to win this fight because he has more avenues. Those calf kicks are very difficult for any boxer to deal with. And Derrick Lewis isn't knocking people out with head kicks. He's knocking people out with those hands. So in order to get into range with those hands, he's probably going to be getting that calf blasted. And we probably see Rogério de Lima get a second round KO here. Under 1.5 looks pretty good to me. It's juice to the tits, but it probably should be. And yeah, I like Rogério de Lima, but Black Beast by KO at plus 225 or plus 250, I might get involved in something like that.
You want to hear a fun fact?
Yeah.
Not that it matters too much, but guess the last time de Lima's been knocked out.
Oh, God, who has knocked him out? Well, I know that Romanov subbed him.
Oh, he's been subbed a lot.
Yeah, he has been subbed a lot, and he's been knocked out once overall. Oh, my God, and it was on the regional scene, so I have no idea who knocked him out.
Yeah, it was over 10 years ago against Carlos Eduardo in Chute, Brazil.
Wow, man, that's the last time. And Rogério de Lima's got that kickboxing background. He was at 205 for a lot of his career, but he was not making that weight cut successfully. And he's like, screw it, man. I'll just move up to heavyweight and be fat. That's much easier. And it's worked well for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's super, super dangerous early on, but the elevation scares me with some de Lima.
Yeah, I mean, it's a heavyweight fight, and you should be scared betting against Derrick Lewis because it only takes one.
Yep, I remember laying chalk on Curtis Blades, thinking it was a very good matchup for him, which it was. But ever since then, I'm always scared to lay chalk against Derrick Lewis.
I remember being over at a friend's house, telling them how Blades was just gonna toy with him, and I'm like, yeah, this guy Lewis, he's got a puncher's chance, but. And then that first round, Blades just outboxes him, picks him apart, shoots 0 takedowns. And I'm like, see, guys, now he's going to start wrestling, and then Lewis is really going to be fucked. And then he's just sleeping. And my friends are looking at me like, what happened, Weezy? I'm like, oh, God, I don't know.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Derrick Lewis happened.
Yeah, exactly. It could happen here, but we will see. All right, let's move on to the next fight. We have Gabriel Bonfim going against Officer Trevin Giles. We got Officer Trevin Giles, 30 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. Bonfim, 25 years old, 6'1" with a 72-inch reach. We got Bonfim 5 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Officer Giles, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against Roman Dolidze, a knockout loss to Dricus du Plessis and Michael Morales, a decision win against Luis Kose, and then a decision win against Preston Parsons. As far as Gabriel Bonfim, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's undefeated, 14-0. He got a submission win on the Contender Series, and then he got a submission win in his debut in like less than 60 seconds. I was very, very impressed with what I saw from Gabriel Bonfim. Not only is he a very good striker, very fast hands, very powerful, but I guess what impressed me the most was like the submission ability. You go and watch this guy's tape, and you will see several fights where as soon as the fight hits the mat, he is submitting you. Like, this guy's a very opportunistic finisher. Opportunistic with his submission game. So not only is he dangerous on the feet with the power, but he's dangerous, very dangerous once this fight hits the mat. And we saw that on the Contender Series and in his debut with Lazez, where he subbed the guy in 60 seconds, which I was not expecting at all. He's going against Officer Giles, who is he's very solid. Officer Giles is somebody who I always thought was very good. He has good striking. He has good wrestling, offensively, defensively, black belt in BJJ. He's just a guy that seems like it's hard for Officer Giles to put together like a full 15-minute performance. There's a lot of times where he's looking very good, and then, he gets flatlined by Dricus du Plessis. He's having some success against Mike Morales. He gets flatlined. He's beating, Gerald Mearshart. He gets subbed. And then he got subbed by Cummings in the third round as well. I really question the cardio of Officer Giles. And again, we are in elevation, so I think that might affect Giles here. And Bonfim's just going to be dangerous, the entire fight, from start to finish, the first, second, or third round. Officer Giles is going to have to fight just a perfect game plan here. I think Bonfim is going to find a finish at some point, whether it's early or late. I don't know. I think it might be later in the fight, but with the way this guy fights, it might even be early. So I like Bonfim here a lot, but he's a big favorite, very, very big favorite. I think Officer Giles is going to need some backup in this one, Weezy.
Yeah, man. I mean, 14-0 Gabriel Bonfim, and he's got 11 wins by submission. And if you were to just kind of like wiki cap the guy, you'd be like, he's a submission guy. And it's like, no, pretty much the opposite. He's a boxer, and a very, very good one. Great jab, professional boxing experience, right? So this guy is very talented on the feet, but like you say, he kind of beats people up, and then they get desperate. They shoot for a takedown, and the fight is over. I mean, he's locking up submissions like he's Damian Maia, and he's not really even a guy that's going out there and like trying to grapple that much. He's very comfortable on the feet at boxing range. So yeah, and I mean, he's not even 26 years old yet. Brady, 14-0. That Munir Lazez win, aging very well. The Trey Waters win, aging very well. Trey Waters came into the UFC on short notice and got a win, as a big underdog, as a matter of fact. Trey Waters is a problem. But, Trevin Giles is good. He's good, and now he's at his natural weight class. Let's just face it. I mean, like, Trevin Giles made his UFC debut at 205 pounds. This guy fought legit people on the regional scene in LFA before he got to the UFC. Anthony Hernandez, Brendan Allen, one other guy that's a UFC guy that he fought on the regional scene. Ryan Spann, right? Ryan Spann, he fought him at 185. So can you imagine? I mean, how huge Spann is at 205. This guy beat Spann, I think, at 185. So Giles is a guy who's very well tested. He's got a UFC win over Roman Dolidze. He lost to Dricus du Plessis. He's lost to some really good guys. But the thing about Giles is that his grappling is good. His boxing is also very good. He's fought the much better brand of competition over his career. He's more experienced, more years in the game, 100 more minutes in the pro cage, 10 more fights at the UFC level, 128 more minutes in the UFC cage fighting UFC level opponents, mostly at middleweight. So, I mean, we got to be a little bit careful here because Trevin Giles is pretty good. But the thing is that as good as Giles is, it's just like Bonfim is just so dangerous. I mean, to not only be that good of a boxer, but also have 100% finish rate. But you look at the tape, he's not a guy who's like losing the fight up until he wins it. If he wasn't getting finishes, he'd be winning decisions, clean ones. So this is going to be a great opportunity to learn a lot more about what Gabriel Bonfim is going to bring in the future here. But at this price, I'm not running in the window to get on Trevin Giles' money line here, especially as dumb as he can be sometimes in there, make some really bad decisions. He's not the kind of guy you want to have money on, especially against somebody that's going out there and smoking Munir Lazzez in less than a minute in his UFC debut. So I do like Bonfim here, but I'm going to tread very lightly on this one.
Yeah. I think violence could be the way to look. There's no over under out yet, and I was wondering why there wasn't, and then I watched Bonfim's tape, and I know why. Giles has been finished 4 times in the UFC, 2 by knockout, 2 by sub. And what's interesting about that is Bonfim, he can knock you out and he can sub you. So I do think there's going to be a lot of opportunities. But like you said, Giles is very good, but he probably does get finished here. Bonfim, one of the biggest favorites on the card. He's currently minus 320. He actually opened up only minus 200, but minus 320 now. And Officer Trevin Giles is currently sitting at plus 270, which makes him, I think, the second biggest dog on the card here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I get it. You know, this kid Bonfim's a phenom. And when you're undefeated, it's hard to picture how does this dude lose, you know, especially to somebody like Giles, who doesn't have like this standard path to victory like a lot of people do. He's not a specialist. He's good everywhere.
Yep, for sure. I'm not sure if the UFC is going to let Giles bring a set of handcuffs into the cage, but if not, I don't like his chances in this one. All right, let's move on. Before we do so, I do want to shout out everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for hanging out. Do appreciate everybody being here on a Sunday. We have 215 of you in here, which is awesome. Glad you guys are joining us here. If you guys have not already, be sure to smash the like button. Let's try to get those likes up, maybe get to 100 by the time we head out of here. And then also, of course, sub to Pub Sports Radio. If you guys have not already, me and Weezy go live every Sunday and break the card down nice and early. We'll move on to a very, very intriguing matchup here. We have Michael Chiesa going against Kevin Holland. We got Chiesa, 35 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. Kevin Holland, 30 years old, 6'3" with an 81-inch reach. Kevin Holland, 5 years younger, 2-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage. Chiesa is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against Diego Sanchez, a decision win against Rafael dos Anjos, a decision win against Neil Magny, submission loss to Vicente Luque, and then a decision loss to Sean Brady. As far as Kevin Holland, 3-2 in his last 5 fights as well. He had a knockout win against Alex Oliveira, submission win against Tim Means, submission loss against Khamzat Chimaev, knockout loss against Stephen Thompson, and then a knockout win against Santiago Ponzinibbio. So this is a very intriguing matchup because on paper, you know, what does Kevin Holland struggle with? I mean, the whole world knows it's the crap takedown defense and it's the crap get up game. But a lot of those fights where, you know, he was taken down and held down, we got to remember, was at middleweight, which is, you know, 15 pounds above, much bigger guys. We saw Derek Brunson take him down and control him. We saw Marvin Vettori take him down and control him. We saw Khamzat Chimaev take him down and sub him instantly. Chiesa is a guy that has fought a lot of his career at lightweight. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work out for him here. But yeah, Chiesa is going to get this fight down to the mat. He's going to try his hardest to, because on the feet, I really don't think this is close at all. Kevin Holland not only is going to be much bigger, but the much better striker, and he hits very, very hard. So we have a striker versus grappler matchup here. Weezy Chiesa is going to be looking to get the fight down to the mat. Holland's going to want to prefer to keep this standing, and it's going to be interesting to see who gets their way in this one. I'm curious to know like where Michael Chiesa is at in his career, though. He's on a 2-fight skid. We have not seen him in a while. He's been very inactive, you know, later in his career. He's now working behind the desk, you know, for the UFC. Whereas Kevin Holland, you know, more in his prime, you know, we know for a fact that he's getting better. He's working on that takedown defense. So I think these guys are kind of at two different points in their career. But it's a good matchup. It's a closely lined fight. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so you broke it down beautifully. But, you know, the thing about Kevin Holland, Brady, is that this guy, you know, like him showing up for a fight is like a Tuesday for most of us. I mean, Kevin Holland is 34 professional fights in just over an 8-year pro career. This guy shows up to fight all the damn time. And then we got Chiesa. He hasn't been in there in a year and 7 months. I mean, how many fights has Kevin Holland had in the last year and 7 months? Maybe 5, 6? You know, so he's just so much more active at this point. But then you look at the stylistic matchup and you're like, well, I get why this fight is lined closely. The way that Chiesa fights, he is very, very predictable. His striking will be predictably ass in every fight, right? But look at that takedown percentage. He's getting 55% of the takedowns that he goes for, and he's attempted 67 of them in the UFC. 3.35 takedowns per 15 minutes, winning 68% of the control time positions he's in. 44% control time for, only 20% control time allowed. So his fights are taking place in control time positions about 65% of the time. So, 2/3 of his fights almost take place where he's most comfortable and where he's winning most of the minutes. But yeah, the striking isn't good. He's got a negative 0.38 striking differential. Couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. 31% accuracy. He landed a knockdown, Brady. He actually landed a knockdown against Jorge Masvidal, of all people, but one knockdown in 16 fights. And you know what's hilarious? Michael Chiesa has 16 UFC fights, 165 minutes in the UFC cage. And in those 165 minutes of octagon time, this guy has landed 172 distance strikes. So even though he's not spending much time, at distance striking, this guy lands about 10 distance strikes per fight. That's how good that Chiesa is at masking what's obviously his biggest weakness, which is his distance striking. So styles make fights. Is Chiesa still emotionally, mentally invested in being a winning fighter at the UFC level? That's something that we're going to have to that remains to be seen at this point. We don't really have that information. But what we do know is that Holland will be way more dangerous on the ground. We know that while Holland only has 50% takedown defense and that he allows 37% takedown or 37% control time to his opponents, he's also a very good grappler. He's a black belt in his own right, and he's dangerous on the ground. The gap in striking for Holland, compared to Chiesa is way bigger than Chiesa's grappling advantage compared to Holland. And then you mentioned the size. Chiesa's a guy who fought most of his career at 155. Holland's a guy who fought most of his career at 185. But Chiesa's a big, welterweight. He really is a big welterweight. However, he's fighting Kevin Holland, who's 6'3" with an 81-inch reach. So he's a massive welterweight. So even though I think that there's an argument to be made for how Chiesa wins this fight, and it's not that. It's a pretty obvious argument. I have to go with the youth of Holland, the activity of Holland, the fact that he's probably had 6 fights since Chiesa's last fight, the fact that he's probably got 10 fights since the last time this guy won a fight, which was against Neil Magny. So. I feel like I have to go with Holland here. The price isn't even that bad. All these fights start on the feet. I bet the under 2.5 rounds here at plus 125, and I went hard on it. I went 2 units to win 2.5 at plus 125. I'm looking for violence. I figure if this gets into the grappling, both guys will be very dangerous. If Chiesa is unable to get this fight to the ground or get to Holland's back, I see a high likelihood of a knockout. Michael Chiesa has been finished in 5 of his 6 UFC losses. And Kevin Holland is a bona fide finisher. And then not only that, where Chiesa does his best finishing is where we're seeing Kevin Holland be the most susceptible. So love violence in this spot. And I think Kevin Holland probably gets the win. But his fight IQ bothers me, and laying juice on somebody like that bothers me.
Yeah, I retired from laying juice on Kevin Holland, and I bet the finish only prop in Kevin Holland's last fight against Thompson. I bet it pretty big as well, because I thought, Kevin Holland never been knocked out, and then he got, I think it broke his arm or wrist or something.
Well,
so yeah, but he's typically very durable. He has been subbed 4 times. So has Chiesa. I think it's a great violent spot as well. I remember taping this fight and being like, I love violence, and then your prop template said it's a trifecta. And if my analysis lines up with a trifecta, I got to be on it. And I did hop on it with you there. You went on it a little bit heavier. I guess I should have went on it heavier, Weezy. I only went on a unit. You went on 2 units because this line got smoked. It's now minus 160 to the under.
What? It was minus 115. I thought, we beat the shit out of that line movement. And shout out Propaholic. He did too. I know that he got it at plus 125 as well. That was one that the template loved, and it's a striker versus grappler, and we don't even know if Chiesa is fully invested at this point. So love that spot.
Yep, Holland should be the underdog. I'm not sure about that just because where these guys are both at in their career. But, you can make a case for Chiesa, absolutely. I think he's going to be a very popular dog this week. Mushroom saying 7 of their 9 losses are by sub. Yeah, I think like Kevin Holland's submission props going to be very sneaky this week just because Chiesa, he is durable. I think he's only been knocked out maybe like once. Let me see. Once, and it was a cut stoppage in the Lozon fight. So he's never actually been knocked out, whereas he's been subbed 4 times. So I could see Holland, getting a sub at some point in this fight. Maybe fight ends by sub, be something to look at as well. But yeah, really good fight here. Striker versus grappler matchup, and one of the more closely lined fights on this card, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great fight, and it'll be interesting to see where Chiesa is, because if he's invested, if he's locked in, if he's grappling and he gets to Holland's back, he can make this look pretty easy, actually. But I'm not as worried about that as I am about that under 2.5 rounds. That's what I really need to happen here.
Yep, I like it. All right, Weezy, let's move on to the next fight. We have Bobby Green going against Tony Ferguson. We got Bobby Green, 36 years old, 5'10", with a 71-inch reach. Ferguson, 39 years old, 5'11", with a 76-inch reach. Green, 3 years younger. Ferguson with a 1-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. Tony Ferguson, 0-5 in his last 5 fights. A knockout loss against Justin Gaethje, decision loss against Charles Oliveira, decision loss against Beneil Dariush, knockout loss against Michael Chandler, and then a submission loss to Nate Diaz. Bobby Green is 2-2 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Knocked out a realtor and Ally Quinta. Got a decision win against Nazareth Hackbrass. A knockout loss against Islam Makhachev. Knockout loss against Drew Dober. And then that no contest against Jared Gordon. So, like I said, a couple months ago, Bobby Green opened up at plus 130 against Tony Ferguson. I know a lot of people that got in on that. Yeah. He's now like minus 350, something crazy like that. And I looked at the line and I'm like, man, Bobby Green should not be this big of a favorite against Tony Ferguson. Maybe I can make a case for Tony here. And then I go and watch his last fight, and he looked terrible in that fight. He looked awful against Nate Diaz. And what's weird to me is how easily like Diaz subbed him. I think it was like 3rd, 4th round. How did, Tony tap that quickly? It's like he didn't even try. He just tapped. And then what's weird about that is, remember the Charles Oliveira fight? I think it was like late 1st round when Charles Oliveira was like breaking his own. You don't tap from that, but you tap from like, it made no sense. I think Ferguson's more than on his way out. He probably shouldn't be fighting on this card at this point. He's 39 years old. He took just life-changing damage in that Gaethje fight, and ever since then, quite frankly, just hasn't been the same. I think Bobby Green makes this look pretty easy. The only problem is, Bobby Green laying this much chalk on him is something I would really never do. But I can't even think about picking Tony Ferguson in this matchup. He just looks so bad. So give me Bobby Green to win this fight. Probably by decision, but I don't know. Maybe he can finish Ferguson late. I think he's going to hit him a lot in this fight. So I like Bobby Green here, but nothing's really sticking out from a betting perspective, Weezy.
Yeah, it's hard to lay that kind of juice on Bobby Green. He's not somebody you lay minus 350 on. You don't. It's not a good idea, but my God, does Tony Ferguson look washed at this point, And I mean, yeah, he's 39 years old, and that's not completely over the hill for this weight class. It could be worse, but with Tony, what you have is somebody who, even when he was winning fights, he was losing the 1st round, getting his face boxed off. He doesn't have particularly good distance striking defense at 57%. It's below average. This guy's absorbed a ton of damage. And, even when he fought Lando Venata back in the day, Venata won the 1st round off of him, but it always takes him a while to get into fights. But it's just the damage, the cumulative damage on Tony at this point. You could tell when you listen to him talk, he doesn't make any sense. And, like you said, that Gaethje fight, that Gaethje fight's really hard to watch because Tony Ferguson's always been one of my favorite fighters. But, when you're watching your favorite fighter lose a fight where you've got money on him and you're begging the ref to stop the fight, please stop the fight. Tony doesn't look good. Tony's taking way too much damage here from a guy who hits way too hard in Gaethje. So, I think it's the end of the road for Tony. And that Nate Diaz fight was about as clear of a message as we needed to say that, like, yeah, Tony's best days are indeed behind him. We knew it after the Gaethje fight, after he took that much damage. So, yeah, I got to think that Bobby Green cruises here. He probably even gets it done inside the distance the way that Tony has looked here. I just think that his synapses aren't firing. The defense is going to be worse. He won't be as fast. He won't be as powerful. And Bobby Green's really difficult to find. He's really difficult to hit. So I just don't see Tony having much success here. I mean, I think Bobby gets this, kind of just cruises, late knockout, decision win. I mean, I think he makes it look academic.
Yep, I agree. Kiwi, shout out to Kiwi, the $20 dono. He says, as always, appreciate all your hard work. We appreciate you, Kiwi, for the dono, for hanging out with us. Does mean a lot. Appreciate you so much. All right. Yeah, I mean, I obviously like Bobby Green. Like I said, the price tag, you see Tony Ferguson at plus 285, and you're like, but after watching that Diaz fight, absolutely not. I think he's done. And he's only gotten older since then. So 39 years old at this point, can't even think about betting Tony Ferguson. But in the same breath, you can't even think about laying minus 350 on Bobby Green as well. The over is getting completely smashed. The over 2.5 was like minus 125. It's now minus 178. I get it, but I would be kind of careful because I think Ferguson's like done. So, I could see Bobby Green finishing him, even though Bobby Green's not really a knockout guy. So I might be looking at maybe like a Bobby Green, like a sneaky knockout prop, like against Bobby Green, Jared Gordon. I had like the knockout prop at plus 380. If I get something crazy like that, I might take a shot, but this is probably just a pass fight where Bobby Green should win this fight. It's just, laying minus 350 on Bobby Green. Maybe he does F it up, but I mean, it's going to be really hard for Bobby Green to F this up.
Yeah, that could be a cheeky play, that under, because like you say, I mean, like, it reminds me of when Bobby Green fought Long Island's #1 realtor in Al Iaquinta. Yeah. Al was checked out, and Al got smoked in the first round. And I mean, Tony Ferguson might not be like completely mentally checked out. Like, he might actually think he can win this fight, but I don't think his body has anything left in it to actually do the work necessary to beat Bobby Green at this point. So, yeah, I mean, I think Bobby Green by KO at plus 300 or better would be really interesting, but I just don't think we're going to get that good of a look.
Yeah, we will see. I'll be looking out for that line. I think it's very, very sneaky this week. Let's see here. He needs the. Yeah, I think he shouldn't be fighting on this. I'm kind of shocked he's fighting on this card. Even I thought after the Diaz fight, like that would be it, but I guess not. Maybe one more.
Maybe he's got another fight on his contract, and he just keeps showing up. And then Dana's like, all right, we'll find you a fight, I mean, like Gaethje, Oliveira, Dariush, Chandler. And then they're like, all right, Nate, we're going to give you Nate Diaz. Nate's going to be high as fuck. Nate doesn't give a shit anymore. Nate's slow. We'll do it at 170 so you don't have to cut weight. And then Nate just styles on him. I didn't think we were going to see Nate Diaz style on anybody ever again. And he looked like we're going to be like giving him a title shot. He's got Hamzat next, Did you see what he did to El Kakui? But yeah, I mean, he looked that good. So yeah, Tony Ferguson's one of my favorite fighters of all time. He should be one of yours too, to everybody out there. The guy was always in exciting fights. But yeah, it's the end of the road, man. This sport, Father Time is undefeated, and this sport is not kind to people who stick around too long.
Absolutely. No concern about how bad he looked against Gordon. Not for me, because I'm not laying minus 350 on Green. Any concern about how bad he looked against Gordon, Weezy?
No, I mean, no, not really. But like you say, dude, I mean, no concern, because I'm not laying minus 300 on Bobby Green. We were talking about it. I was saying maybe I'll parlay Green with Semmelsberger, and I was like, wait a second, no, I'm not parlaying Bobby Green at minus 330 or whatever it was. I'm like, no, I can do better than that, and I did. I parlayed him with CJ, who's fighting a big fat phony with a terrible haircut. So I like that at plus 132 rather than the plus 100 I would have gotten had I parlayed Green with Semmelsberger instead of Vergara.
Yep. No, I won't be parlaying Green, but if somebody wants to parlay him, I mean, I don't, I can't really talk anybody out of it, just because I don't really see how Ferguson wins this fight at this point, other than Bobby Green just making multiple mistakes. So yeah, we'll see. All right, 3 fights left. Weezy, we have Stephen Thompson going against Michel Pereira. We got Stephen Thompson, 40 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Michel Pereira, 29 years old, 6'1" with a 73-inch reach. Pereira, 11 years younger, 1-inch height advantage, 2-inch reach disadvantage. Stephen Thompson, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Vicente Luque, decision win against Jeff Neal, decision loss against Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad. Then a knockout win against Kevin Holland. As far as Michel Pereira, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Submission win against Aleem Imadaev, a decision win against Chaos Williams, a decision win against Nico Price, a decision win against Andre Fiallo, and then a decision win against Santiago Ponzinibbio. Man, Michel Pereira's came a long way, huh, Weezy? I mean, this is a guy that used to mess around so much. I remember first taping this guy, and I think it was before the Danny Roberts fight. And you go watch tape on this guy, and he's just doing like backflips. He's doing cartwheels. He's messing around. There was this one fight where he was fighting just some complete bum and doing multiple backflips onto this complete bum. I wasn't sold on Michel Pereira at all. Like, this guy would mess around all the time, and he still does that a little bit, but he's toned it down a lot more, and he's actually going out there and fighting a lot smarter, and that's making him very dangerous. Like, I remember the Aleem Imadaev fight. I think it was like the second, third round where he was just like slapping Imadaev like in the face. He was like this. He was like, yeah, you want it? You want it? And it kind of reminded me of when I was in Myrtle Beach at the strip club, and the stripper came up to me and she was like smacking her ass. She was smacking her ass and saying, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. And it kind of reminded me of that. Like, he was just smacking him. And then he's like doing flips onto Nico Price. And I was watching that back late last night. He did a backflip onto Nico Price. His foot kicked Price in the head. Price is like, and then Pereira gets right in the mount. So this guy is so exciting. He's so unpredictable. You cannot expect anything against this guy. I mean, this is a guy that, gassed out against Tristan Connolly. Remember that 3-minute dance routine he did against Connolly, and then loses as like a -500 favorite. Come on. He's a very exciting fighter, but he's toned it down a little bit. He's going against Stephen Thompson, who at 40 years old is looking better than ever. I remember that Jeff Neal performance looked phenomenal, beat the crap out of Vicente Luque, beat the crap out of Kevin Holland. The only time he's really looked bad as of late when people are trying to take him down. I guess the big question is Michel Pereira going to try to take him down? Bootsy might think so, but Weezy, what do you think of this fight?
Yeah, this is going to be such a fun fight, because some people say that Michel Pereira might wrestle, and he's been good as a wrestler, 11 of 20 on his takedowns, 55%. But what he's not good at is getting more than 3 seconds of control time from said takedown. No, he never holds anybody down. Michel Pereira has 11 takedowns. Michel Pereira has allowed only 1 takedown, but he's still only winning. He wins less than half of the control time positions that he's in. So, get it out of your head that Pereira is going to go out here and get 3 takedowns in 9 minutes of control time on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. That's not happening here. This is going to be a striking match, and it's going to be a really fun one because Pereira is just he's so diverse with what he's going to throw. He's a way more talented Vinicius Salvador. He's Vinicius Salvador with a lot more minute-winning capabilities and a lot better defensively because he's very unpredictable. He's wild. He has some great power, and he can do super flashy shit that makes you really kind of like audibly say, whoa, I can't believe he just even tried that, like backflipping onto Nico Price. I mean, if this were a dance competition, Pereira, the bookies wouldn't even be taking bets on this. Yeah. But Michel Pereira is a phenomenal dancer. And you want to talk about pre-fight antics and dance routines. I mean, Pereira might be top 3 of all time in any weight class in this storied promotion we call the UFC. So, but at range, you look at the numbers. We got an 8-fight sample size and 100 minutes in the cage for Pereira. We got a 17-fight sample size for Thompson, 260 minutes in the UFC octagon. These guys' metrics are pretty similar. As a matter of fact, Pereira is actually more accurate at 51% at distance than Thompson is at 43%. Both of these guys have 61% distance striking defense. Both of these guys have very good positive distance striking differentials. Positive 1.5 for Pereira, positive 2 for Stephen Thompson. They're both landing with power. Pereira has landed 2 knockdowns in 8 fights. Stephen Thompson has landed 9 knockdowns in 17 fights. And, you know, like I say, I think that this fight takes place at distance striking range. When I look at the strength of schedule numbers, they favor Thompson. When I look at the wins in the strength of schedule, it definitely favors Thompson. And I just trust him a little bit more at range to do the right thing and throw more functional techniques and do it with a little bit more efficiency than Pereira does. So, yeah, I do like Stephen Thompson here, but these are very similar fighters, and you never want to be that confident taking the 40-year-old over the 29-year-old. That age gap is something that you always have to take into consideration. And Pereira is just huge for the weight class. He's going to be an inch taller. He's probably going to look a lot bigger than Stephen Thompson on fight day. But this is a great main card fight here. A striker's delight. I think we're going to get to watch two phenomenal, talented, flashy strikers get to strike at range for the majority of this fight. And it's going to be a real crowd pleaser. But I'm leaning Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in this spot. But don't want to lay juice on a 40-year-old against a 29-year-old.
No, I mean, this is a big pass fight for me. Like you said, if it was a dance competition, a dance off for 15 minutes, obviously you'd favor Pereira pretty heavily, and it might even be a max bet, but this is not a dance off, and this is a fight, and I think it could be a competitive fight. It really could. Rick the Ruler saying, shake my head. Y'all not worried about Pereira in elevation? Doesn't he kind of have cardio issues? Yeah, he does. And I'm going to be taking a close look to the walkouts, Weezy. If he goes out there doing a full off, dance routine, rehearsed dance routine, you probably just lay the wood on Stephen Thompson there. Because if he does a full out dance routine, I'm not sure he has the cardio to go 15 here. And also watch the first, like if he's going out there and doing backflips and cartwheels in the first round, like you can't sustain that across 15 minutes, especially at elevation.
Yeah, but if you also have to think about, right, we throw out the Tristan Connolly fight. So let's just throw that one out, okay? Pereira's actually 4-1 in his decisions in the UFC. So am I really worried about somebody whose cardio, when he's 4-2, he's been the distance 6 times in 8 UFC fights, and he's winning 2/3 of those decisions? No, I'm not terribly worried about his cardio at elevation. But yeah, I think that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson will have the better cardio. He doesn't have nearly as brutal of a weight cut to get to 170 as Michel Pereira does. And he's demonstrated better cardio, and he's had fights that were scheduled for 5 rounds. So, of course, he'll have the cardio advantage. But do I expect Pereira to be dead on the stool after the first round? If he doesn't do a horribly involved dance routine, I don't expect to see that.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a look at the dance routine. If not, we'll see. But yeah, Thompson opened up -200, currently -164. Pereira opened up +170, currently +144. I just have no interest in betting this fight from a money line standpoint. From a prop standpoint, like the over is juiced to -210. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on this one. It should be a fun fight to watch, though.
Great fight to watch. I mean, two really good traditional martial arts technique strikers here. So that's a great main card fight on a great card.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to this co-main event then. We have a fight between Jan Błachowicz and Alex Pereira. We have Jan Błachowicz, 40 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. Alex Pereira, 35 years old, 6'4" with a 79-inch reach. We got Błachowicz is 5 years older and going to be at 2-inch height disadvantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Błachowicz is 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Dominic Reyes. Decision win against Israel Adesanya. Submission loss to Glover Teixeira. A knockout win against Alexander Rakic, and then a draw against Magomed Ankalaev. As far as Alex Pereira, 4-0 or 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Andreas Michailidis. A decision win against Bruno Silva. A knockout win against Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya, then got knocked out in his last fight against Israel Adesanya. So obviously Alex Pereira is coming up a weight class here. And what I don't like about this fight for Pereira is the fact that he is coming back just way too soon after getting brutally knocked out by Adesanya. He got knocked out by Adesanya like 2 years and like 3 months. 2 months and 3 weeks ago. So a little bit, almost three months there since he got knocked out. I think that's a little bit too soon for my liking. And I feel like Błachowicz does have a couple paths here. I've always really question the durability of Alex Pereira, and maybe him coming up a weight class is going to help out that durability. But we did see Adesanya hurt him really bad late first round, and then obviously we saw Adesanya just starch him in the second fight there. But coming up a weight class might help that, but the fact that he's coming back a little bit too early, I don't like that. And I just think that Błachowicz does have a very clear path to victory here. With the wrestling, it's just, is Błachowicz going to go out there and get the fight down to the mat? We saw him do it against Adesanya, took him down to the third, fourth, and fifth round. Waited a little bit longer than he really should have in that fight, but that was a 5-round fight. Maybe he wanted to pace himself a little bit. This is a 3-round fight. If Błachowicz comes out here and wrestles and gets the fight down to the mat, I think it looks pretty easy. We saw Adesanya take down Pereira and just really do whatever he wants. We saw Pereira make a lot of mistakes on the mat, and he kind of got away with it against Adesanya, but Błachowicz is a black belt that does have multiple submissions on his record. So I guess for me, Weezy, it comes down to two things. The game plan for Jan Błachowicz. Is he going to come out here and strike with Pereira across 15 minutes, or is he going to come in here and take this guy down and style on him? I don't know whether he's going to or not. And then the other thing is the walkout song. And I was telling you about this, Weezy. These Polish fighters, apparently the Red Hot Chili Peppers are very popular in Poland. I was at UFC 290, and then Marcin Prachnio walked out to Can't Stop by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then I couldn't help but to notice last night, Marcin Tybura actually walked out to the same song, Can't Stop, by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Obviously, Tybura and Prachnio from Poland, Błachowicz from Poland. So I'm going to be taking a close look at the walkout song choice from Błachowicz. If he walks out to Can't Stop by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I'm going to be taking a hard look at the Pereira side. But if he walks out there with a different song, I do like Błachowicz here quite a bit. And the Red Hot Chili Peppers are apparently the worst base for MMA, it seems like. So I like Błachowicz here, and I think this line might flip. We will see. But yeah, money coming in on Pereira. I just wish I knew the game plan for Błachowicz. It'd make this fight so much easier to break down.
Yeah, and you look at Błachowicz over his UFC career, 19 UFC fights, Brady, 30 takedown attempts. So that does not inspire confidence if your stylistic read on this fight is Jan has to wrestle in order to be a favorite here, right? Which he is right now. He's a small favorite on the money line. So can you count on Jan to do that? The fact that he did not shoot one takedown in the first 3 rounds of the Adesanya fight, really, I think it took him over 17 minutes to shoot his first takedown. And in my opinion, you might have been able to even give all 3 of those first 3 rounds to Adesanya. They were all close, right? So it was just interesting that Jan showed very poor fight IQ, in my opinion, there. But the thing about Jan is that Jan's grappling is so much better than Alex Pereira's. But Alex Pereira's striking will be superior here. But to Jan Błachowicz, I don't think it's that big of a gap. Jan can absolutely hold his own on the feet here. He's a very skilled counter striker. He's got a lot of power. He's pretty damn accurate at 45% at distance, but he's very defensively responsible. 63.5% distance striking defense, a positive 1.5 distance striking differential. These are all really good numbers. Now, with Pereira, you got a guy who's extremely dangerous on the feet. That left hook is one of the most dangerous weapons that anybody has across any weight class in the sport of mixed martial arts. So you have to absolutely take that into account. But I don't think there's any question that Jan Błachowicz has more paths to victory here over Alex Pereira. We know that Alex Pereira is a phenomenal kickboxer, but we also know that his grappling game is not on the level of Jan Błachowicz. And Jan, if he fights smart, could look minus 200, minus 250 here if he comes out wrestling. But something tells me he's not going to do that, dude. And which tells me that the line is actually good where it is.
Yeah, if he doesn't wrestle, he's stupid.
Yeah.
Simple as that. If you don't take this, you're an idiot. I know Pereira's like training with Glover this year, but his grappling looked atrocious against Adesanya. What is Błachowicz going to do? So, yeah, like I said, if I knew for a fact that Błachowicz would come out here and grapple, it'd probably be a max bet. But the fact of the matter is, We don't know that, and we don't know whether he's going to walk out to some Red Hot Chili Peppers either. So right now it's probably a pass, but I think this line might flip. Like I see Błachowicz minus 105. You're gonna give me Błachowicz at plus money here after Pereira just got knocked out 2 months ago with more past the victory. I might have to take a plus money shot on Błachowicz, but right now I'm gonna just sit back and watch where this line goes. Any thoughts on this over under? It's set it. Oh, it just got hit. It got hit. So the under was at minus 155. There it was like interesting. Now it's minus 180, which makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, God, what a sweat an over in an Alex Pereira would be. I mean, and then he's went over a couple of times. Hell, he went to the 5th round without Adesanya in the first match. He went to decision with Bruno Silva, and that was what, minus 500, minus 600 to finish inside the distance. So, yeah, I mean, I could see if you're making that over bet. I mean, it's going to be a horrible sweat, and I won't be there with you, but yeah, it's something to possibly look at if you think both these guys are durable. But yeah, man, I'm not betting that over. There's no chance. But at minus 180, that's a little bit too juiced as well.
Yeah. Right now, it's going to be a pass, but it's a real fascinating matchup. Real fascinating matchup here.
Very fascinating. Yeah. I mean, like Błachowicz is a guy that it's kind of hard to get behind, but he keeps getting the damn job done. Over and over and over again. So it'll be really interesting to see how this one plays out. He lost to Glover because, the neck injury and because, Glover's a phenomenal grappler. Pereira doesn't have that in him. So it's going to be interesting here. This should be Jan's fight to win if he can find those weaknesses in Pereira's game and exploit them.
Yeah, it was funny. Like there was like a 5 fight streak for Błachowicz where I just picked against him every time, and he kept knocking guys out. I always counted this guy out, but I guess I'm gonna pick him here against Alex Pereira. But we'll see if he comes in here with the right game plan. If he does, he looks minus 1,000. All right, let's move on to the main event. What a fight here. We got Dustin Poirier going against Justin Gaethje too. We got Dustin Poirier, 34 years old, 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. Justin Gaethje, 34 years old, 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. Same age there. We got Justin Gaethje, 2-inch height advantage, a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Dustin Poirier, 5-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Dan Hooker. Knockout win against Conor McGregor. Another knockout win against Conor McGregor. A submission loss to Charles Oliveira. And then a submission win against Michael Chandler. As far as Justin Gaethje is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Ferguson. Submission loss to Khabib. A decision win against Chandler. A submission loss against Charles Oliveira. And then a decision win against Rafael Fiziev. This fight's going to be so good. I think these two are very, very well matched as well. I think we're going to get just an all-out war. This has potential to be one of, if not the best fight of the year on paper. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fascinating main event?
Yeah, awesome, man. Both these guys 34 years old. So even though both of them have got a ton of fights, a ton of experience, a ton of high-level experience, championship challengers, both of these guys. Yeah, this is a tremendously high-level fight. I watched a lot of tape on both of these guys. I think they're incredibly well-matched. That first fight was very interesting. We see Poirier and Gaethje going back and forth, like you mentioned, Brady. Gaethje investing in those low leg kicks, Poirier investing in the body, and they're just at war. Three rounds. Now, Gaethje pokes him in the eye in the second. Gaethje pokes him in the eye again in the third. Gets a point taken. Right at the end of the third round, Poirier pokes Gaethje with like 1 second left while the ref's kind of like getting in between them to end the round, right? And Gaethje's like, man, he poked me. He poked me bad. Goes back to his corner, and you could tell Gaethje's eye is done. He comes out in the 4th round, and when you watch that fight start in the 4th round, they put the camera on Gaethje. His eye is fluctuating. He's blinking it. He gets hit with like the 2nd or 3rd punch that Poirier throws. Fight's over. Very interesting because up until that point, these guys were very well matched and going back and forth. I wouldn't put too much stock into the first Poirier win, to be honest with you. I think that was a very close fight, and I think that eye poke actually really changed the trajectory of the fight there. Now we've got a situation where Poirier's on about a 7-month layoff. It'll be 8 months, and Gaethje just beat Rafael Fiziev less than 4 months ago. So he's been a little more active recently, has Justin Gaethje. He's been taking the tough fights just like Poirier always has been. I mean, you talk about the level of competition that these guys have fought. It's absolutely phenomenal. They've both only been fighting top level competition since they've been here pretty much. So I can't wait for this fight. Obviously, Poirier is the guy who mixes in the wrestling a little bit more, but Justin Gaethje has been controlled less than 3% of his UFC cage time, and he's stuffed 15 of the 20 takedown attempts that he's seen in 11 fights. So this is going to be a stand-up war. Both of these guys have a ton of power. Both of these guys are very durable. Both of these guys have no quit in them. Both of these guys have that dog in them. It is going to be a classic main event, but I'm leaning on the Justin Gaethje side because I kind of feel like haven't seen as much of Poirier lately, and I kind of feel like Gaethje at this point in his career might just want it a little bit more. He might be a little bit more active, and he might be a little bit more tuned in on that belt at this point while Poirier is selling that hot sauce, looking for another Conor McGregor fight. So I'm going to go with Gaethje here, man. And I think that this is going to be a very violent fight and that it is not going to go the full 5 rounds. But obviously that is not a hot take.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is. I mean, this over is interesting. So they set it at 2.5 rounds, and the over 2.5 opened up at plus 125. It's now minus 120, and the under 2.5 is now minus 110. I kind of like. I can see this fight going over 2.5, but I don't see this fight really going the distance. I'm curious to see where they put this fight doesn't go, because we can talk about the numbers. What was it combined between these two in 5-round fights? I think it's like something crazy. These finish rates.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with the 5-round fights on my prop template, Brady, what's hilarious is that these guys fought each other, and that was like one of the only fights that went over 2.5 rounds. So Poirier and Gaethje, Poirier's been scheduled for 10 5-round fights in the UFC. Gaethje's been scheduled for 8. Out of those 18 fights, 16 of them have finished inside the distance. And 72% or 13 of 18 have finished under 2.5 rounds. So if you actually throw out Poirier Gaethje 1 when they fought each other, it's actually 7 of 9 for Poirier and it's 6 of 7 for Gaethje. And then that would wind up being 13 of 16. So yeah, the under 2.5 at minus 110 is actually a bet that I would be considering making here, because both these dudes have serious power. I don't see much grappling in this fight. I think that these guys are going to be in the center of the cage, trading bombs. Gaethje is going to be trying to kick the bottom half of Poirier's lead leg into the 3rd row, and Poirier is going to be looking to break his ribs with every body shot that he throws, and they both land hard to the head. I'm liking the under 2.5 here, and I think Gaethje breaks Poirier in the 3rd.
Yeah, I'm going to. I don't mind the under 2.5. I'm going to wait for the 3.5 though. And then also, like I said, the fight doesn't go to decision. I'm hoping they don't make it something crazy, which I don't really think they will. We'll see though.
Yeah, we could get a decent number on that. 70% of lightweight fights that are scheduled for 5 rounds finish inside the distance. Holy crap. It might be something around minus 225, minus 250 if they take that number into consideration, which wouldn't be too bad, but it'll probably be something more like minus 350.
Yeah, that's what I think it probably will be as well. Poirier slight favorite, minus 140. Gaethje plus 120. Probably staying away from a money line, but I'll be looking at some type of violence in this fight. I get people playing the over, like somebody said over 1.5. I agree, because both guys are so durable, but the over 1.5 is probably going to be something crazy that it's probably not even worth playing with these two, because they are going to hit each other in the face a lot here.
Yeah, they are. And in the body and in the legs. And God, everywhere. These guys are so mean. They're so vicious. What a great main event. This is going to be a crowd pleaser, and the fans are going to be going nuts for this one, including me.
Yep. I'm going to have some friends over this weekend, and I will be purchasing the pay-per-view, which it's worth it, I think. I'll pay the $80. Nice.
Yes. I will be on a golf trip with all my friends starting on Thursday, And yeah, we're going to be drunk as shit on Saturday night watching this one after 54 holes of golf in 3 days. So
how are you going to do that?
we're going to find out, Brady. We're going to see if my old creaky body still has it in me. But yeah, I think I'm going to pull it off, and then we're going to watch these fights on Saturday night, and I am going to be lit up like a Christmas tree, my friend, enjoying the violence.
There you go. Yeah, that is a lot of holes, but you can do it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that your Uncle Weezy's been able to do over his career, especially in his youth, is a lot of holes.
There you go. All right, we did it, Weezy. We went through all 12 fights. Yeah, pretty good show, pretty good fights, and a lot of spots sticking out. Any final thoughts on the card, and also let the people know your plans for some content for UFC 291 this week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to this card. Got to look more into some of these fights to find even better spots. But I've already got 3 units down on this card, and I'll be looking to get a lot more than that. You can find me and Brady on the MMA Engine YouTube channel for Propability. We're going to be breaking down the time props on this card tomorrow at right 1 hour before Clint goes live on Pub Sports Radio for the Die Hard MMA podcast. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy, Tuesday night for Just a Tip with Uncle Weezy. And you can find me right here on Pub Sports Radio 3 times a week. Stat Diggers on Sundays, the DFS show on Wednesdays, the watch along on Saturdays. And the only thing left to do is to stack cashed tickets like flapjacks for UFC 291. Really looking forward to this card, Brady. And you've got a 6-unit win that you're coming off of last week. So it'll be really sweet for you to keep the ball rolling and really make these bookies cry.
Yep. Hopefully I don't give it all back laying chalk on like Miranda Maverick or nothing like that, which I don't think I will. So I think we're all good there. I did post 2 breakdowns, the co-main event and the main event on my channel. Those are out right now. I'll be posting my full card breakdown prediction video tomorrow. All fights are taped. Just have to hit record. And then I'll be going live Friday for some final thoughts, and then Saturday for some best bet as well. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us on a Sunday. If you guys could hit the like on the way out, it is always much appreciated. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio, and we will see you Wednesday here on Pub Sports for the DraftKings show. Best of luck, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. See you later. Come on!